Let's talk about muscular endurance. So as mentioned in the earlier podcast, there's 5 elements of training that we need to look after. Those are aerobic, that's the top of the list, and number one priority, have good aerobic conditioning. That allows us to transport all the things we need through our body. Oxygen from the lungs, energy or calories from our gut and liver, blood to our surface of our skin to regulate temperature, and then obviously ketones and glycogen to our muscles so they can operate. So that needs to be fit. Our veins, capillaries need to be large, our heart needs to hold the capacity to be able to keep us moving as fast as possible and supply all that stuff. The next I'll talk to you today is muscular endurance. That's the second of the list, to make sure our muscles can actually do the number of repeats to reach the end of the race. Third priority would be technique, being efficient. Fourth one, strength. And the fifth one is around lactate tolerance, or the ability to remove waste from our system. Looking into muscular endurance, it is not the same as muscular strength. It's very different. Strength is our ability to produce force, and basically over time that becomes power. However, that can increase speed. However, the first priority is to be able to do the distance. So that's about muscular endurance. It's the ability for the muscle to repeat the actions that we're asking of it to get to the end of the race. Very different from strength, where it's the ability to lift something or move something. We're talking about your resistance more than time. Endurance is about, in a marathon, it's over 40,000 repeats of running. In a 3.8 kilometre swim, an Ironman, it's probably going to be at least 3,800 strokes of repeating that same contraction of the muscles. Now, our ability to actually, for our muscles to maintain those repetitions is muscular endurance. If we haven't got the muscular endurance, as we get into our event, muscles will start breaking down. They'll either start getting tears, small tears, which will reduce the muscular length, and the muscles start shortening. We'll even potentially get cramp if they're not conditioned. Not the only reason for cramp, though, there are others. But that endurance aspect of endurance sports is fundamental importance. That's why I put it as number 2 after aerobic in terms of our development pattern. And that it differs between the athletes as how conditioned you are for strength, etc., how we prioritize them individually. But in terms of the ladder, in terms of priorities, definitely muscular endurance is number 2. So what do we do for endurance? Endurance is around, we don't want to repeat the distances of the race, but we actually want to build resistance into our muscular endurance training, so that we don't, not doing like for a marathon, we don't run a marathon on race and training. We run shorter, up to 2.5 hours, or say 30 kilometers. We don't run the 42, but we want to build in the capacity for the muscles to do the same pace over 42 kilometers without doing that distance. So we add resistance to our training. Now, we don't add a lot of resistance. Excuse me. We add enough resistance so we're increasing the load of the muscle, but we're doing lots of repeats. So it's just creating that functional reserve in the muscle to actually go further than we do in training. Things I tend to set my athletes up. Swimming, it's paddles work. You can do it with swimming parachutes, you can do it with tethers, things like that, but paddle work, provided your stroke is correct and you're not putting the incorrect load through the shoulders and the shoulder joints. Paddles are a great way of doing that. And then doing 200s, 400s with paddle work to create that extra load through the muscles, through the lats and the shoulder, etc., so you can hold on to that stroke for longer on race day. For run, hill intervals, great. You can actually add load. You add a backpack and do fast walking or slow jogging up hills, but you don't actually need a lot of weight. Just find a long hill, let's say 5 minutes, and you don't want to go above your lactate threshold. You want a repeatable distance that you're not pushing, so you're developing and building up lactate, but you want to repeat it multiple times. So I like to say if you're going to do these muscular endurance, you want to do longer repeats, low to medium resistance, but repeat until such time as you're slowing down without actually going into lactate, and your heart rate's not increasing. So you're just building that muscular resistance. So the longer intervals, it can be as short as 3 to 5 minutes repeats. You can go longer, you can go up to 20 minutes, provided you've got more resistance, for instance, uphill weight or something like that, to actually load up the muscles a little bit more than they normally load up. Bike is the same. The trainers on Swift or Trainer Road or Virtual, absolutely perfect on a trainer, because then you can actually set the load, the resistance load that you actually need, and then again doing 5, 8, 7 minutes. Now the bike, what I suggest is do resistance, but maybe lower your cadence on that. When you lower the cadence, you actually, with the same amount of power, you actually need more force. So if you drop your cadence to 50, even 60, lower than your normal, it simulates riding uphill. This sort of riding uphill actually gives us muscular endurance, because generally we run out of gears, we lower our cadence, more force goes through the pedals, it's more resistance, and it's a great way of actually just building that resistance into the muscle. When we're on the flats or in normal circumstances, we can go further. Muscular endurance, a lot of people don't recognize it. They see strength training and they see aerobic and they see doing fast sprints, tempo type work. Quite often they leave out the muscular endurance work, which is the long intervals with resistance without going all out and building up lactate. That's the magic piece that actually makes us tolerant to be able to go far and maintain pace for a long period of time. So it is a different style. I describe this to my athletes, definitely in our build phase, where we actually just want to top off that muscular endurance so they can last out the full race. Earlier in the season, I'll focus on strength. I want to focus on strength during the build, because what we want to do is carry through the strength or the power that they have, make that last longer during the build. Just getting into more specific training with a little bit more. Part of that is, well, what will underpin the muscular endurance I'll do in my next podcast, which will be to technique. So basically making all our actions efficient, effective, and low risk in terms of injury, which is free speed. And then that combined with muscular endurance will give us all the free speed without actually building up too much muscle bulk. Now, once we get to the strength, that equals speed, but the foundation of muscular endurance, technique, and aerobic fitness needs to be there to properly leverage that strength. Anyway, I hope this was useful. Again, look back in about a week's time. I'll post something on technique and how we can actually focus on that to actually improve our race times. See you.